going to talk today with Pastor Mike Bass about sort of on a broader scale about who he is and why he's in Pullman and what he expects to accomplish here and how he got here and all that sort of thing. So, welcome, and we'll just get right into it, I guess, Mike. Um,
Yeah.
so, you've been in Pullman for a year now, just over a year, and the search committee, of course, had long and detailed conversations with you, but the congregation as a whole has not had the chance to do that, and also because a year has gone by, maybe some things have changed. So I thought we'd try to dig a bit into both who you are and how you
Mhm.
see things here in Pullman. So maybe we'll begin with asking just a little bit about your career before you were called to ministry and how that led you ultimately into a call to ministry.
Yeah, good question. So I used to work as an environmental scientist. I did air quality, outdoor air quality sampling for about um, 10 or 11 years. And then I went into the regulatory field with the state environmental agency and then into consulting. So I've had a bit of all the worlds there and then sort of a role as a mediator in between. But yeah, so I was, um, I suppose, trained as a scientist and worked as a scientist, and that has informed, I suppose, how I see the world. Um, and, I see that as uh, processes. It's sort of like the earth, the landforms, the processes that, shape things over time, like, for example, like geology, physics, chemistry, are all things I've studied, some in depth, some as a generalist, and um, ecosystems and all being like complex, interconnected parts. And so I have sort of uh, viewed uh, God in that sense as, I latched on to process theology, uh, how God creates systems, puts systems in place, like the seasons, for example, and within that, these creatures roam. And so God is creator and invites creation into relationship. And one of the things I did as the scientist, air quality scientist, was manage a crew or supervise a crew, manage an office, run a budget, um, do reviews, and experience the interplay of sort of corporate life and local life and that tension between the two. And so I found myself over that time as someone sort of advocating for the crew, advocating for the employee, advocating for the one who's working for um, the larger group. And we worked hard and long hours. And, I thought it was important that folks be able to participate in family, have their own relationships. And so that's sort of, you know, the a little bit of the life I lived.
Was
When
that
I
taking place in Texas largely or all over the
Yes, thank
country?
you. So the office was based in Texas, and I spent the first 3 years of that traveling the state and the region of the South, testing facilities like coal-fired power plant or natural gas-fired power plants, refineries, chemical plants, you name it. If it had a smokestack, we would test it. And um, and then I also traveled across the country. I was involved on a mercury research project for the Environmental Protection Agency, where they were researching the amount of mercury from coal-fired power plants, the amount of mercury that's exhausted in the air, that is deposited into lakes and deposited into the ground, or what remains from the coal. And so I did travel the country doing that, into the Northeast, the Midwest, a little bit of the Mountain West, and uh, that suited how I felt growing up in a small town, relatively small town. I was anxious to get out and see the world, and so that helped me with that. But it was hard to have a family. I didn't at the time, but other folks did, uh, and participate with that. But yes, so then I settled around the Houston area for about 5 years, and I managed an office down there, and we went up and down the Texas coast and Louisiana coast testing. And you know, Hurricane Rita came along in 2008, and that was right after Katrina, if you remember that. I think it was June for Katrina and maybe August or September for Rita. And having to evacuate Houston was not fun. And, and that was probably when I decided it was time to get out of there. So I talked with the home office, and that's when I was able to transfer to New Jersey. And that's some of the part I lived in New Jersey. And from there, it was traveling from Boston to Chicago to Atlanta
Uh-huh.
for work. So lots of
So,
travel.
so in all of those travels, you've probably come across sort of the differences in the way uh, religion and Christianity is
Mm,
viewed in different parts of the country. I think here in the Northwest, for those of us who are sort of firmly planted here, we see the South as sort of a vast unknown in some ways. I know that
mm-hmm,
when I've traveled to the South, even 40 or 50 years ago, it felt like I was very uncomfortable in that. And I know that largely that's stemming out of my prejudices
mm-hmm.
about about the South because I haven't really engaged with people
Sure.
there. And do
Yeah.
you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I can see, I think I can see a lot of what you're talking about. It is a very, tends to be a very conserving place in lots of ways, and you know, uh, predominantly in religion. And the status quo is very hard to move. Um, and I think more of those conserving uh, churches historically may have, helped with entrenchment there, or uh, maybe anchoring those communities. And I didn't have a lot of exposure to the mainline faith. And growing up, I did have exposure to Judaism and Islam, but for me, it was more of a. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, which was a more of an individual focus
Mhm.
rather than the collective. But um, yeah, getting out and seeing the world, Northeast. There's lots of and Midwest. There's lots of different ways to do church, but the South seemed to focus a lot on individuals, on the small family unit, and family values, and uh, maybe a little hesitant for social change, but
Mhm.
um,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
so you mentioned that your family was Southern Baptist when you were growing up, and
Mhm.
I mean, interested about the exposure to Judaism and Islam in that
Mm.
context. That's
Yeah,
a little surprising
right.
to this
Yeah,
biased observer, and maybe
right.
say about something about how that came about.
Oh, sure. So it's, ways of connecting a child to, and namely, it was for me, it was soccer and uh, t-ball, and I got to know a good friend of mine, Ari Levy. His dad was the local rabbi for the Reform synagogue in town, and then my other friend Kareem Kafre. His dad was an immigrant from Pakistan, and so they practiced Muslim faith, and so it was very disorienting to this little boy at maybe 4 years old, 5 years old, who goes to church on a Sunday and Sunday morning, and then finds other folks going on Saturday
Uh,
and having ritual meals on Friday nights, and that were a lot different than the way my family did dinner, supper meals, and then Kareem's family would take time during the day to pray, like that was their faith, and so I had lots of questions, and but it was also an openness to discover uh, their faith beliefs and how that informed um, their sense of family and community. So I was grateful for that, um, and so Kareem actually ended up being becoming my college roommate. Uh, we went to school all through grade school, high school, and then in college together, and then Ari, I think his dad had accepted a call at a different church or a different synagogue, I should say.
yeah.
Uh, right. And so we didn't necessarily keep up after that, but yeah, it was interesting, and I'm grateful for that because it definitely helped me think about and move towards a more community oriented faith,
Mhm.
and uh, you know, think differently about what life may have been like in the Middle East during the Hebrew scriptures or
Mhm.
the New Testament times, um,
Mhm.
and
Really
since then.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, how did you get from environmental scientist to I presume a student at a UCC seminary, or maybe not a
Hmm.
UCC seminary. I don't know. Um, let you
Sure.
let you describe that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. So um, I had I had traveled the country a lot for work, and I had uh, I was in 2012, I had moved from Phoenix, Arizona back to Texas. And when I did that, that's when I got a job at the state and the state environmental protection agency, Texas's version of that. And within a couple of weeks, of moving back to Texas, I'd got a job. Within a couple of weeks of that, I had gotten invited to church. That seems to be the way many people end up at church, and so I was invited, and it didn't take long before I began to serve and help here, help there, and that just became more and more as the months progressed, and it felt good to serve others. I had experienced a sense of meaning and purpose in that, and um, so over time. Oh, I should say that at the time I had switched working from the state to the consulting agency. I was gradually increasing my service hours at the church. I was also a part of many social clubs, and I was doing a lot of volunteering there and just leaning into serving people, whether it's volunteering at food drives, Salvation Army, Women's Center, or or serving the local church. That I just felt that was where my future was. That was my place, and that's what my passion was. And so, in a 3 year time from moving back to Texas, I had sort of uh, experienced a transformation in not wanting to work for a company per se, but wanting to work for a group of people that were interested in meaningful intentional lives. So I discerned a call to a disciples seminary, Texas Christian University, which is a disciples college. And then the seminary there, though, was ecumenical, followed in the trends of the Ivy League schools and the Chicago schools and Vanderbilt, where it's more of a gathering point for uh, mainline denominations and other forms of faith, where we can all come together and talk about scriptures, talk about God, talk about life, and have a more broader sense of our place in all that. So it was largely Methodist, mostly Methodist students. SM Southern Methodist University was next door, but very expensive, and I think that was the draw to Bride Divinity School. But
Uh,
yeah, um, yeah, and that's where I was, and there was very good professors there, and I just felt like there was something for me there. And while there, um, I left the church I had been and moved to a disciples church. And then I felt something was missing, and then I discovered the UCC church, and that seemed to do it for me.
mm,
That was where I belonged. Not necessarily that church,
but
but that faith,
that
the
faith, that
UCC.
denomination, eh?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Um, So, going to shift gears a little bit
Yeah.
and let's talk about Pullman. Um,
Hmm.
been here a year now. Came with a certain set of expectations, I'm sure,
Hmm.
and maybe things are a little different than what you thought, or maybe they're pretty much the same. I don't know. Let's dig
Yeah.
into that a little bit.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Let's right. Yeah. So when you think about it, a search committee is a group of people that are representing, it's not like representative government. They're representing the church and they sort of collectively form the identity of the church, so to speak, and um, put the profile together. And I put my profile together, and we discovered each other. And I'm happy to say that's largely been true. What I found in the profile is what I've experienced when I got here, and things that excited me was the team structure, the togetherness, community, the social justice, the worship, and 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 things like that. Um, and I could say, it's been a very good experience, and we're showing up for worship. We are sharing leadership, um, and and those are things that I appreciate that I was looking for, and I, on that note, we do have a few vacancies, but we have lots of teams and a certain amount of
Yeah,
people in our community, but we're showing up for justice issues, and that's important, and that's something to be excited about.
yeah.
But there is that aspect of, there were, I think, 9 people on the committee, on the team, and there are 80 something people, 90 something people that participate in this community. So that's 90 different theologies, 90 different ways of understanding the world. And so what I didn't know was what that experience would be like, trying to step into the pulpit or the worship space and speak to that and meet people where they are. So there's been some give and take about where are people, and some discovery of
Mhm,
how close am I to where they're at now.
mhm.
And uh, and that's taken a little bit of time. Somebody early on came by, a minister, second or third week, came by, and after worship uh, they share with me that it would probably take a year for me to sort of find where people
Get
are,
a
and
solid footing. Yeah,
yeah, right, and the ins and outs of what a week looks like, what a worship service, what's expected, and and how I can speak into their language or find their language to tap into that and sort of pull a little bit along. And that's been largely true. I feel a lot more comfortable in the pulpit and the worship now. Made a few tweaks. I've tried to lean into uh, hospitality is a big thing here, which was part of the draw, and I've been able to um, experience that from people. I've been able to see it in action. I've been able to see how people care about that, and so I've just tried to introduce some of that into worship, and um, I think that's helped.
yeah,
And uh, there's a lot, like, there's a little bit more than I expected about getting out into the community. Like, with the other pastors showing up for community events. But that's okay. That's part of this post. I need to be seen in community. I need to participate in community, so I can know the spirit of the larger community.
I also think that being out in the community is a powerful tool for reestablishing our
Mm-hmm.
church
Yeah.
as a force within the community, and for the ultimate overall health of the church. Given our numbers and what they
Yeah.
were
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and what they are now, it's at least things seem to be moving in the right direction. Maybe not terribly fast, but at least going in the right direction
Right.
at the time. Um, so that actually brings me to the next question then, which is related to the sermon that you gave on
Uh-huh.
this past Sunday.
Yeah.
And for people who weren't there, I will summarize it in my words, and you can
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. But the gist of the sermon built around the story of the Good Samaritan was let's focus on the innkeeper and the inn and its role in the story as a uh, analogy at least or metaphor for the church.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of emphasized the physical building
Mm-hmm.
of the inn and the church as part of that, but perhaps there are other parts of the institution of the church that uh, seem important to you. Not just the building, but the fact
Right.
that the church goes on, and what does it
Yes.
take for the church to go on?
Yes. Um, yeah, yeah, good question. And I would say, so yeah, speaking to that time frame you were just mentioning, uh, uh, churches are they're permanent stakeholders in the community. You think like a hospital or newspaper or a school. These institutions that have been around a while, and the church is certainly that's been around a while. I think we've been here since 1887, 1880 something. We are resilient. We've been around a long time, and because we've been around a long time, we can speak to the story of the community of Pullman, of the Palouse, and this church. We will have seen that over the long term. We hope we will have seen the community change over the years. The uh, community of Pullman, and the church is also, though, a trusted institution, meaning um, we're respected because we are a church, and some folks are more likely to come to a meeting here, or maybe think in terms of like uh, AA maybe, or they're liable to seek a meeting with me if they feel some sense of shame about seeking out a mental health provider. Um, and so we're known as a place, or we should be known as a place that it can be trusted. And our folks, a church should be filled with a diverse group of people. And we have um, educators, scientists, we have farmers, uh, stay-at-home people, we have wordsmiths, business owners, uh, like many churches do. So we have a cross section of the community, and we are committed to each other. That's our covenant with each other, but we should also be committed to the larger community. So as a stakeholder in the community, then perhaps we have a responsibility as an institution in that community to to take part. And so, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if we know our community well, if we are people of this community and we are, you know, educators and doctors and farmers and such, then we should know what maybe we should know what's lacking in the community and lean into that, lean into what is needed, and perhaps that's our responsibility as a stakeholder. So,
Oh,
and if we do that, if we use our time and our talent and our treasure, our resources, then then we're living out our faith. We're participating in a just world for all as an agents of transformation.
it's interesting that you mentioned that particular direction. I was thinking last night about how impermanent and ill-connected I think many people are to this community or to any community these days. Thinking about back to my dad, who grew up in Seattle and all his life, except for the time he was away in the army, lived in Washington and had this tremendous understanding. He was a sort of geography buff, and
Hmm.
so he was just really into knowing the roads around the
Yeah.
community and the geology of the community and where
Yeah.
were the lakes and
Yeah.
I just feel like for so many people uh, in this modern age that that doesn't happen for them, and it certainly happens less for me than I think it did for my dad.
Yeah.
I because I professionally did things before I retired that weren't that weren't local. You know, they were more universal in their in their scope.
Sure.
The paying attention to the local, and for me, that's one of the things that the church, in fact, has been about is staying
Yeah.
connected, both locally and to the broader
Yep.
social issues. We are going on, and I have just one more question. I think that we'll
Okay.
wrap up with. Um,
Okay.
and it's sort of related as well. You recently took a vacation, and I understand
Mm.
you did some driving around
Yeah.
Washington to find out things about Washington. So,
Hmm.
what did you find, and
Oh my gosh.
what's cool? What should we all be looking for?
Oh my goodness. So we all
Because
need to
because
take.
that's a intentional investigation of
Yeah.
Washington, and those of us who've
Yeah.
lived here maybe never did that. So,
Well
right.
worded. This state, so I know that Texas is a big state and it has so many different, biomes and ecosystems, but Washington does too. And uh, to take the North Cascades Highway across is it's very beautiful. And you travel from the Columbia River system, uh, and that sort of desert coming into that, the wilderness coming into that, and then travel in elevation through forests, and on the other side is just trees like you would not believe, and um, a a blue sea and a blue sky. And you tell I caught it with good weather.
And
and
going
lots of
through the
people.
North
Yeah,
Cascades, the Blue River, that river up there,
yeah,
I don't even remember which river it is, but it's not
yeah.
anyway. Um, the 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 glacial water with the dissolved
Hmm.
blue
Yep.
minerals. It's really
Yeah. And so I did a little bit of camping and saw some elk herds and other wildlife. But yeah, there was lots to discover. And I caught it at a very busy time, Memorial Day weekend. I don't recommend that. But after that, it seemed to quiet down as everyone went back to work.
Mhm.
Uh, um, yeah, I just I tried to see a little bit of everything. Um, for folks that don't haven't got a beach experience, I would recommend Westport. You go out to Aberdeen and I think I went left south. I
Mhm.
think you go right too and experience it as well. But there's a dune system there where you have a long sandy beach and a dune that transitions from ocean to bay or ocean to landform. And um, yeah, it's like a miniature Palouse. Because sometimes I look out on the Palouse and I see like desert with grass, with
Mhm.
the wind systems blowing loose around, blowing sand around. But the grass, um, well, it's not really grass, I suppose, but the vegetation tends to anchor
Uh-huh.
them.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't anchor all of it, but yeah, the deserts are like shifting fluid, ebb and flow.
Mhm.
The dunes are like that, and we are like that as individuals as we encounter um, joys, concerns, traumas. Uh, yeah, so yeah, lots to discover, and I'll go back. I'll go to Olympic National Park. There were a few things along the way, like the road to the whole rainforest was broken, so we couldn't camp in the whole rainforest.
Uh,
Mount St. Helens Visitor Center was being remodeled, so I couldn't go there. But
More things to do over
more
your
things to do.
coming
Yeah,
years. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Well, thank you very much for
yeah,
agreeing to this experiment of doing these interviews.
yeah.
And I will edit it and see what we end up with.